Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everybody, here on Big Blend Radio. We are having our second panel discussion on the world of artificial intelligence, AI. So I kind of look at AI as like artificial sugar. Those things, the white powder that comes in blue, yellow, or pink packets. So it may be good for you. It may not. We don't know. But we're going to talk about the good, the amazing uses it does have. We're also going to talk about the bad and the ugly like we have before. We have a different guest joining us and one who is on the last one we did. And that is Joey Stuckey, a musician, singer, songwriter. He's on our podcast every fourth Sunday. We're usually talking about music or food or whatever silliness we want to. And we've got some amazing authors joining us on the show as well. So I think we're going to be talking about technical stuff, medical stuff, musical stuff, blind technology from Joey's side as well, writing. You never know what could happen on these shows. So first off, I'm going to bring musician Joey Stuckey back on. How are you, Joey?
I'm well, my friend. I hope you are.
I am well. I'm excited to chat with all of you and talk about AI. Do you ever touch the that sugar substance that they call, artificial sugar in those?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Do you?
Use it every day.
Uh-oh. Well, we got a doctor on the show, so you never know what he might say about that.
Yeah.
But everyone.
I use Splenda, so there you go. Shameless brand dropping. Yeah.
Okay. You can do that. You're allowed. Yeah. Everyone, joeystuckey.com is the website to go to. Everyone's websites that I talk about on the show are linked in the episode notes for your convenience. So we also have author Marshall Runge on the show. I like to call him Dr. Marshall. He has written the book, the novel Coded to Kill. And yes, he's a doctor. He talks about AI a lot on our shows, and his book delves into it as well. And it's not just, AI in the medical industry is really fascinating. And I'm very excited to have him on the show. We talked about this a while ago and we're like, we've got to do this show together. And here we are. So keep up with him at codedtokill.com. So welcome back to the show, Marshall. How are you?
Well, thanks, Lisa. Thanks. I'm great. And it's great to be on. I've been looking forward to this because, I would say I know a smidgen about AI. And so having the opportunity to hear other people's thoughts on it will be great.
So, when you know so much of it, that means that you get to be a dangerous writer.
Yeah.
That's it, because I know you kill people off, so that happens. So what about that sugary substance in the pink, yellow, and blue packets? Is that artificially good or bad for us?
Oh, people argue about it all the time. Overall, I think it's better than sugar. Unless you just take tiny bits of sugar, but that's my view on it. So if you were, for example, in soft drinks and all, I think it's a way to mediate how much sugar a person eats. And I know I only drink diet soft drinks. My favorite's Diet Dr. Pepper. If you haven't tried that, it's the real deal. So that's the way I feel about it.
Well, I just had to bring this up, because we're talking about artificial stuff, and this leads us to our next guest on the show, who wrote Artificial Agent. This is coming out January 21st, author J.W. Jarvis. You can go to his website, authorjwjarvis.com. He's got other books there, and he's got another book coming out in February. And we had a conversation on Big Blend Radio, which will be out soon. And I was like, dude, you've got to come on the artificial intelligence show since you wrote Artificial Agent. So welcome, JW. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. I love talking about the technology stuff. That's why I wrote a techno thriller. And I actually, my other job is I work in tech. So I have both sides. So we actually do a lot of artificial intelligence implementations in my company. I work in the IT department, and we're seeing some really good things coming from it. So, if any of you know that about Microsoft's Ignite, which just finished up last week, everything that they summarized for that whole session about all the new things that are coming out, it was all related to AI. So it's crazy how much and companies are going like gangbusters. And of course, we all know that the CPU and GPU usage is going up because we need big, powerful CPUs and GPUs to run this stuff. So that's why NVIDIA is doing so well. So lots of fun stuff going on.
Is this why we have to keep moving servers right now with our magazines? I just have to ask this because Nancy and I are going through pure hell. And this is partly why we're doing this in audio right now and not in video, because right now, I'm just going to say we've been up since like 1 a.m, dealing with server stuff and changes. And it seems to always happen at this time of year of everybody's changing. There's all these updates where everyone is updating everything on every platform. And I don't know if everyone's really talking to each other and getting it straight. Is this what's going on? I just have to ask.
Really, it depends. I mean, a lot of companies have what they like to call technology debt. So tech debt is for short. And they haven't updated things in a while. So sometimes you get caught and you have to, and you hit a deadline and you have to do it. And that's kind of hurts your users. So it really just depends. And then some of them are just consolidating. Maybe they with all the technology that's come out, sometimes you can save a lot of money by changing your architecture and stuff. So it really depends, and that's one of the benefits of AI too, is that it's giving us the ability to automate and generate content much faster. So it gives us more time to do other things.
Well, this is going to be an interesting conversation for sure, but it is leading me to the wine bottle quickly. Doctor, don't listen to me. So Matt, who's the king of happy hour, Matt Costa is here, and he has written so many books. You've got to go to his website, mattcosta.net. And, Matt, you've written historical novels, and then you've got mystery, you've got history. AI to you. Tell us a little bit about what that connects with you for writing.
Actually, it's just my latest work, which I'm finishing up editing right now, that won't be out till 2026, is about AI, and it's a thriller regarding that. So that's been sort of exciting for me, digging into it. And, one of the most interesting pieces that I came across was that AI was coined in 1956 by John McCarthy. And so AI has been around for 64 years, 68 years, whatever the math is. I'm a writer, not a mathematician, but it's been around for a long time. And I think perhaps that it's been misnamed because it is fake intelligence or artificial intelligence, which, doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's just the last 3 or 4 years has really kicked into everybody's talking about AI, but it's been around for a long time. Okay,
but when did the internet start? I thought that was in the 80s for the military.
No. It started long before then. The internet did, but computers, they were making back in the 40s and 50s. And
those giant.
They started talking about amassing information to put it together. And that's basically, what artificial intelligence is doing, is amassing this information and spitting it back out much faster than the rest of us can do.
Wow. All right. I want to bring author and producer Michael Wolk on the show. His novel, it's a cyber novel. It's an interactive novel. Devil's Game is out right now. And I can encourage you to go to his website at devilsgame.com and wolktransfer.com to learn more about him. So Michael, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's great to be here in this panel of esteemed experts.
All of you are writers, including Joey is a songwriter. So this is interesting talking about content, right? Because thievery, that's how I kind of look at AI too, is the thievery of it all. So, but Michael, do you want to give everyone a little overview of Devil's Game, since that is so interactive and it's a different concept. It's an app on phone where you can read a book and then click through and get yourself into mayhem. Oh, I used one of Matt's words, mayhem. Mainly mayhem there. Or wicked.
Yep. Well, we call Devil's Game a cyber novel because it really basically it's hyperlinked fiction is the simple idea, is that reading the story, you are linked to websites that are either created for the story to expand the universe of the story or curated by the story so that it provides real world background from real websites, news sites, and other government websites that give you background that make the reality of the story more intense, hopefully. But it's about an internet apocalypse, and it's one that people experience through their phones, because the first thing that happens is that iPhones and Androids go brick, and they're just totally useless. So that throws the world for a loop, and that's the way it begins. But the whole idea of artificial intelligence really appeals to one of the characters in it in a positive way. To the other, who's a televangelist, the AI is really consuming our souls by making decisions for us, decisions that used to reside with us. And in fact, when we search it with Google now, we don't get just search results. We get AI telling us what we want to know, and therefore research becomes regurgitation of the internet. The internet is feeding on itself. The more that it populates the internet with its own stuff, the more garbage is feeding on garbage, and we're entering the world where it's very hard to tell what's real.
I feel like we're going to have a giant digital landfill. I like it when you say garbage feeding on garbage. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. Where's the Cookie Monster when we need him? What's interesting is for the arts, I want to talk about that. What happens with the arts, with writing, photography, music, all of that. And how it is copied. I mean, at this point, if you get on Facebook, every famous person is being AI'd in their images and used in ads, used in fake group things. And I like this word fake. We do a lot in the world of garden and plants. And we did a lot of shows on indoor houseplants and the health of it. And I remember doing a podcast talking to one of the experts, and I said to him, I was like, yeah, you go in houses and sometimes they have those silk flowers, and, he goes, no, Lisa, we call them fake. That doesn't help our industry. So we just call them fake so we can sell the real plant, So it's kind of interesting talking about this fake part. But we also have the medical world. That is affected with this, and the writing world's interesting. The podcast world. I just produced a podcast a few minutes ago, and I was testing the AI thing, and it wrote this killer intro, and I was like, oh, well, okay. And then I went to use it and realized everything of how I needed to do and why, and I couldn't use it, and I didn't want to anyway. But it did open my mind into other ways. So there's some positives, but I was like, dude, this is crazy. Let's go on the medical side, and I want to do that with Joey first. As a musician, and you do speaking engagements around the world on technology for the blind, do you think AI can help? I know we've touched on this on the last podcast on AI, but what do you think, Joey?
Yeah, I mean, it's a sticky wicket. I mean, we've been predicting machines taking over our universe for a long time. And I certainly feel I'm a humanist. I think AI needs to stay in its lane as a tool. I don't want sentient machines telling me stuff. I couldn't agree more with Michael talking about, how garbage is feeding on garbage. But when it comes to being a tool and not the lead, I think it has a lot of wonderful applications. One of the things that I would like to see AI do, and I've been dreaming about this for a long time, is to be my eyes and to tell me what's around me from a mobility standpoint, to have driverless cars that are self-driving cars or driverless cars or robot cars, whatever you want to call them. In the world that I live in, blind people are not able to use a mouse because when you work with screen readers that try to tell you what's on the screen, there is no way for those scripts to tell you where the mouse pointer is and what it's hovering over. So everything has to be done by keyboard commands. And eventually those keyboard commands become basically a quick path to carpal tunnel. I mean, they're so complicated. There's so many, and every different program uses something different, and you have to make sure you don't have native conflicts. So you've got to worry about the screen reader. You got to worry about the main host software. Then you got to worry about third-party plugins. all of which use different keyboard commands. Some of them are the same. It's really a nightmare. So what I would love to see happen is to see AI be able to be my eyes and be able to talk to me about what's on the screen and activate things that I can't activate. So without going too far down the rabbit hole, if I'm working on a music project and I say, hey, what's happening with my compressor settings on track number 13, which is my snare drum, it'd be nice for the AI to tell me what controls are active, what controls are not active, and to change my settings for me so I don't have to click around with a mouse or use all the keyboard commands. So as a virtual assistant, I think that there's a lot of progress, that can be made there. And there's some wonderful, I mean, it's pretty amazing. There's some AI technology now with a company called Be My Eyes that will describe things to you. And I posted a picture on Facebook the other day, and I tested it to see what it would recognize. And it said a box of oatmeal cookies. Well, that was pretty close. It was a box of mince pies, but I mean, that's better than what I would have gotten before, which would have been nothing. At least I knew it was food.
And mince pies are better. Mince pies are
well, I like them both, but I'm a fat man that likes to eat. But I just, there's certainly a place for AI, but I think as a companion to human beings to enhance our abilities, I think it's wonderful. As long as it remains in a tool like manifestation and not its own sentient thing. Because I just and we'll get to this later, but when it comes to art, you have people that spend an inordinate amount of time becoming an artist, becoming a good artist. And one of the things that I'm really against is any AI creating its own art. There was a bill passed in Tennessee called the Elvis Act, and it helps to safeguard, using likenesses and things like that. And I'm really in favor of that. And it's interesting. I had another blind friend. There's a company called 11 Labs that has this. I think it's Burt Reynolds and Judy Garland and several deceased actors who they've gone through and crunched their voices by giving them lots of data to sift through. And you can realistically, like, I can't tell the difference. I mean, you can go in and type a message and have Judy Garland read it. And it's so good, Lisa, that, I mean, there are breaths, there are different inflections of emotion. It's absolutely breathtaking. So knowing what's real and what's fake is becoming much harder. The only thing I can say is that I usually think it's fake if it seems unreasonable. So
this is starting to sound like politicians.
Well, it's true. It's amazing. But I'll tell you something. He wrote me a note. My blind friend wrote me a note because I'm against using likenesses, even of deceased artists, frankly. And I mean, their families might not be against it, and of course that's their business. But I think that it takes away from the deceased artists when you add new canons of work that they didn't actually do. So, but he sent me a note read by Judy Garland, and she said, "Hey Joey, I sure wish I was alive now, or you've been alive back in the 30s, so you could have been the musical director for my film Wizard of Oz." And when she said, "I wish I'd been alive then," or "you've been," the remorse in her voice was like, it gave me chills. It was so scary. So anyway, there's a lot of ramifications for art. There's a lot of ramifications for science.
I want to go over to JW. You've got work to do now. Just saying. With this, do you see changes in tech and AI? I mean, obviously the military side, the military's use it as well, right? Medicine. I mean, to me, we'll talk with Marshall on the medicine side too. There are some, when it comes to the tools, and I think what's scary about things for people in general is they feel like, okay, you're getting into a car that's going to drive itself and blow up, right? That lack of control of human hands doing something and making decisions. But from what I'm seeing, even in the medical world, from what I've, watched documentaries, interviews, all of that, humans still have to say yay or nay to what AI comes up with, right? Is that right, JW?
Yeah, so I think there's a ton of, and I'm sure the doctor will agree with you. There's a ton of medical applications. I mean, the fact that just alone that we have a big deficit in the amount of medical providers and people that can help in the medical field, AI can help with that, right? Because I was just reading an article, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that Taiwan is actually using some of Microsoft's OpenAI architecture to run through all the pharmaceutical checks that they have to do so that they can see more patients. So they're actually seeing double the amount of patients now because they use the AI to check things like, are there conflicts in the medicine they're taking? What have they been taking? Things like that. So they basically take a bunch of data from a bunch of different databases and they collect it all together, and AI kind of spits it out in a nice dashboard for them instead of them having to query multiple different sources of data. So that right there is super powerful, cuts down a lot of time. And if it's pulling from solid databases, right, then it's not fake, right? It's just pulling information and being a better way to present it. So that's where I see the big benefit is of AI. And in my book, in Artificial Agent, I talk about prosthetics, basically, right? So, like, I mean, even right there, I mean, we see that the robot sort of technology is really improving. We've got Tesla, putting them in our factories, now trying to put them in our homes. But there's got to be some sort of decision making there when you talk to these robots, or when robotic arms or prosthetic arms work, right? So how do you do that? Well, you can link it to a person's brain, which is a possibility, but you can also link it to something more artificial to help them make sure that their brain operates it correctly. So I think as an assistant, as I agree with Joey, I think if it keeps in that lane, that's great. If it starts taking over and making decisions for us, that's where it gets kind of scary. But as long as we put some controls in front of it, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Tesla robots that Elon Musk created, he purposely made them a certain way. So, for instance, they can't run as fast as a human. He made them lighter than humans so they can be pushed over easier, right? So he didn't make it like a 6'5" robot that
Yeah.
that could scare the heck out of
Godzilla.
so I think it's important we put some of those limitations in place as we develop this stuff. Otherwise, it will get out of hand.
Mm. Marshall, any comments on the medical side? And even with what Joey's talking about, I think is really cool. And I think is 100% doable from what I've seen from some of the, like, if anyone watches the Pitch documentary, I really, encourage people to watch that because you'll see like these, I mean, even how virtual reality, which is all connected to AI, is changing the landscape of patient care, even in regards to not having to take as many drugs in a small or just like a small surgery. I was going to say like a day pass to a spa surgery thing or whatever, but whatever they're called. It's really changed that. So what do you think, Marshall, on everything that JW is saying and also Joey?
Well, I think I fall right in the same general feeling about AI as they do. I think it's extraordinarily powerful in my mind, and it has lots of applications, but it's not a replacement for a human. So, just to give you a couple of examples, one article in the New York Times in the last week or two gave the example that one of the AI drivers did better than doctors did in analyzing medical problems. And so, it was a bit concocted because the doctors who were participating didn't actually know how or did not wish to take advantage of AI. And I think it's at its greatest when it's an adjuvant and it's working with care providers in medicine, for example. Other examples include AI is very good at screening digital images. So, for example, CAT scans or MRIs or things like that. But it has its limitations. What it can do, though, however, if you've ever seen a CAT scan or an MRI, there are 50 images there that a radiologist has to go through, and it is very good at ruling out normals. So if you have 50 and of those slices, 48 of them are normal, it's quite good at that. In terms of trying to figure out exactly what's going on, it can be more complicated. So then it gets to, well, what AI can do. And you were mentioning, JW was mentioning Elon Musk. So another innovation of Elon Musk is a company that I think is called Neuralink or something like that, which is a brain-computer interface, which can transmit signals from the brain to cause a computer to respond. So I heard about that and read about it because I had a very close friend who we trained together who developed ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, where ultimately in the last year or two of his life, he passed away recently. He was essentially quadriplegic, and he could blink out directions. Unbelievable. He could blink directions to his computer to send emails. But
wow,
this is what the Neuralink does is even beyond that. So I think there's potential for things that we can't do otherwise. I'll give you one other example. So I'll just ask the rhetorical question. Have any of you ever had trouble getting an appointment for your next medical problem? Well, unless you don't live in the same world I do, the answer is yes, of course. And there are multiple levels. I'm not going to go through all the things that can go wrong with trying to get an appointment. But one concept that has come up recently, and JW may know more about this, but is the notion that every patient in a health system could have their own AI assistant. And so what would an AI assistant do for you? Well, the AI assistant would be able to link with the medical record and find out that, well, maybe I don't have an appointment tomorrow, but my colleague does and had a late cancellation. And that also before a person showed up for their medical appointment, they need to have this blood work or that blood work, and can arrange all that in a way that is so different than today, where you may go see a doctor or a care provider who says, oh, well, now you need these 3 tests done. You can have those 3 tests done before you arrive. So I think there's a lot of potential in what I'll call operational areas of medicine.
Well, I think what you say about the visuals is exactly what Joey was talking about. And then even the blinking. I mean,
right.
Joey, I think you have hope. Like I use an app through iNaturalist, an amazing organization. And the app is called Seek on your phone. And you can go out wherever and use your phone or even a camera, and then you upload it. And it's how I document species across the country. And so, I geek out. It's part of citizen science, and I'm like weird that way. And they even will do sound and listen. It'll listen to sound. And the only way is it's using AI in some way to be able to, and I know Google Images does all that too. It's using all that data that's already there. And then after that, all the scientists and the natural people and people that do that argue over what species it is. And after 3 strikes, somebody wins. That's how it works. So the humans win on that. But Joey, I think you have hope on this, what you want done. I really do.
It is within our ability. It's a question of making sure that there's the impetus to make it happen. And we have the technology, and I'm very excited about brain interfaces with machines. I would be open to robotic eyes. My goal for myself and for my life is to be independent and to be able to execute the things that I want to do with as few cumbersome methods as possible. So if I could drive myself rather than a driverless car, and have robot eyes. I love what Marshall says though about sort of the continuity of care. that can be achieved with AI. And I think that's a big thing. My wife is an advanced practice nurse, has a master's degree in nursing, and then also is a certified nurse midwife. And I'm a brain tumor survivor. So we know the ins and outs of the medical field quite well. And the thing that we are always struggling for is that continuity of care. So I think it's a really interesting idea that an AI medical assistant could help facilitate that. So that's a really cool idea and something that I'd love to see happen. And, I just think, even one of the greatest minds, arguably, certainly of my lifetime, was Stephen Hawking. And he was terrified of AI. And so I think, it's not, it seems kind of melodramatic to sit here and say, oh, humans first, and I don't want the robots to kill us all in our sleep. But it's not an unreasonable precaution to take. And I think the big thing that worries me the most is borrowing people's likenesses and having films made by Elvis when he's already dead, stuff like that. And then B, the other thing that really bothers me is just the idea of making sure that AI has the proper data to chew on, that it has good, clean, reliable information. So
yeah,
that's
not all the clickbait.
Well, stuff. I mean, because there was I forget what the name of it was, but there was an AI on Twitter for a while that after a couple of days on Twitter started spouting out like white supremacy racism. And nice. they had to take it off. And there's some reporting. There's a book called The Chaos Machine, and there's some reporting that seems to indicate that at one point YouTube kind of lost control of its AI. It was an AI making AIs, and they stopped understanding how it was happening, and so they pulled the plug. And because YouTube, just like all the social media platforms, their ultimate goal is engagement, so that they can sell you stuff. So their ultimate goal is engagement, and they were coming up with these wonderful little algorithms that were finding ways of keeping people engaged and stuff like that. And they had to pull the plug. It's some pretty good reporting on that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, but the positives I think are definitely out there, and I do believe, I'm hoping, the next 5 to 10 years, the kind of things that I want to see, assuming we have the will to do it, will come to fruition, because I think there's certainly, again, robot eyes, love it.
Okay, but you know what? Some of the stuff you just described, I'm going over to Michael here with Devil's Game. It sounded kind of like a Devil's Game right there with the YouTube and everything. So do you see like a Devil's Game part 2 and using AI craziness? Like, because you could click into the real stories, right?
Really, yeah. No, AI is definitely terrifying to me, and I think it is something that we need to be thinking about and talking about very consciously. It's astonishing to me that with one fell swoop that Google took, the search away and replaced it with recommendations, basically with AI. So you don't have to really look very far. You surpass all the places that you used to go for your information, and those places, like the media sites, they're not seeing the traffic that they used to. I mean, it just went down overnight. Even Google search itself is suffering because people want those AI answers. They want the work done for them, the decisions made for them, the recommendations to come to the top for them. So, they're using Perplexity and ChatGPT, and that's what younger people are using. I hear more than Google search now.
And there's people now who actually have full-on conversations with Alexa. I mean, I've seen it, but we do. Nancy and I talked to her. We're like, "Are you married, Alexa?" She goes, "No, I'm happily single, thank you." And but you can actually, anyway, don't start me on that, because we do mess with Echo, Alexa, all of them, because it's interesting, because someone had to give them the information. So some tech, I don't know, JW, at night at 2 a.m, was working on Alexa and said, "Yes, I'll teach her how to make a fart sound." I'm just saying.
Yeah, I didn't do it. I haven't been that impressed with Alexa, but I am pretty impressed with Gemini and ChatGPT. I think they have voice, just regular voice communications where you don't have to type in, and it's very easy to talk to them. I don't know if you guys have noticed. I saw a couple. I think it was Michael and Marshall that were commenting on this, but have you noticed in Amazon, which is interesting, where Rufus has taken over? So like instead of like you going down and looking at your say book reviews or product reviews, now you just ask Rufus and then they give you like or Rufus already gives you a summary of all the reviews below. So now nobody's reading the reviews anymore. They're just reading the AI part that says here's a summary of all the reviews of this product or book. So that's
And it's
kind
a
of a little
dog.
bit scary
Rufus the
too, because
dog.
it's like, what if I wanted them to see something in my review, So
Wow.
Well, it's
Wow.
happening. It's happening on Facebook too. There's starting to be summaries of the posts. I saw an AI
yeah,
summary of
yeah.
one of my posts the other day when I wished everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and it said, "Well wishes pour in for the Stuckey family," and that kind of thing. I was like, "Oh my god!" I mean, it's alarming.
Wow. Wow. I want to go to Matt on this. We've talked about reviews before on when we did the Success Insider conversation with you, remember? And we were talking about reviews. This could take out some of those people that need to be taken out. Or you could call Marshall for that. He's coded to kill. But I have to mess with you on that, Marshall. Come on. But Matt, I mean, this has got to be fodder for your next book. I mean, all these conversations. How do you not make complete chaos out of a book with this? Like, just the stories could be like insane.
Oh, absolutely. The book that I'm editing right now kind of takes all these pieces in and, the billionaire who has a social media site called Everything and a cell phone company and a internet search engine. And he's amassing all of this information and he's no longer predicting human behavior. He's now able to influence human behavior because he knows what they want more than they know what they want themselves because he's amassed all of this information. And this is, my fear a little bit. JW talked a little earlier about we got to put limitations on having humanoids that are 6'5" and, but we don't have a tendency to put limitations on things. So, the way of the world is we're going to have soldiers that are humanoids that are 6'5" going out there and,
Killing zombies.
policemen and whatnot and fighting that way. So I think it's certainly a scary thing of the end result of this amassing of and regurgitation of
Mm.
information. So
Oh,
I would worry about it.
Matt, I have to ask you this because the last time you were on the podcast, we did a show on cults and we talked about Scientology and we talked about being raised in a cult as a child. And that was a very serious discussion on what happens to people, how they end up in cults and what, I mean, my gosh, to be raised in one is horrific.
Just
And,
to be clear, I was not raised in a cult as a child.
no,
It was
no,
another
no, Matt, it wasn't
panelist.
Matt. And he didn't join L. Ron Hubbard, even though that is like one sci-fi story that cannot be beat, right? But we talked about that and, you know, just as you were talking, I'm like, holy cow, it sounds like you're almost creating AI like a cult leader with all the information it gets in a way with the influencing part. And we have social media influencers now, this younger generation running around and, Nancy and I travel full time. We document parks and public lands as one side of what we do. And we see the influencers run around. They're running on algorithms and hashtags, not actually seeing the beauty of the place they are in, not smelling, not listening, and all it's about is that photo. And national parks are cracking down on them now. It's actually becoming very illegal because you're profiting off of parks, which is not what it's for. It's a public place. And they will go in. I need my photo here by the Grand Canyon. Some fall in, and I'm not joking. It's true. And they don't even they don't even experience where they are. So even the word influencer freaks me out. Like it does. So what do you think, Matt, with AI algorithms, influencers, all of this being amassed? It is like a weird sci-fi cult thing. It is.
Oh, absolutely. As we talked, one of the main tenets of a cult is getting your information from one person, and it's the one true word. And, as we talk about that today, that's what AI is becoming, the one true word for so many people. They're not going to the Google searches. They're just looking at the AI response. In my upcoming book, I've named him Al for artificial learning, which is also a play on HAL from 2001. So,
Right.
and in the book, Alexa does sue Al, but Al wins because
Oh boy. I want to talk about this because I feel like the arts as a whole is going to be the balancer of everything, because artists are always, and when I say artists, it's musicians, songwriters, authors like you guys, playwrights, it's the arts when it's done with integrity, which with so much independence now in the arts, it is pretty much, it tells the truth. So I want to hear about, like, what do you think about that concept? I want to start with you, Michael, because not only are you an author, but you also work in theater. Do you see plays coming through like where it's like, hey, I know Joey does live music, do you see like the performing arts, the stage, the writing that goes behind it, helping to balance out that kind of the cult of AI? Even though there's good stuff with AI, there is good stuff. So, you know what I
There's
mean?
yeah, I do. There was a show that just closed on Broadway called McNeil that starred Robert Downey Jr., who was his first stage role, Iron Man himself. And he thought it important enough to make his debut in this because it was about AI and about an author and about an author who really, obtained the fruits of AI without, accrediting, that. And, it's, it's becoming such that, you know, even promoting my book, for example, the marketing department, before I even knew it, they just reported back. They said, okay, we heard this voiceover that was going under a video, and the voiceover was artificially created by somebody
Mm-hmm.
a voiceover actor was paid a certain set fee, and he said all the words in the dictionary, or a lot of words, and then they paid him off, and he's probably never to be heard from again as a voiceover actor because they've captured him. So
Yeah.
people in the arts, of live arts, are already being substituted, by AI, which is a scary thing. But I think what plays can do, like this McNeil, is bring the discussion of AI into a room where real people can talk about it, and they can see how it affects real world situations.
Mm.
So that can be useful. What the Screenwriters Guild was worried about, and they went on strike about, was the idea that AI could become your manager, writing your script arc for the next 5 years of a series.
Mm-hmm.
AIs can figure it out for you. Who dies when, in what season?
And steal from everyone else that's already done the creative work.
You're so
That's where
right.
the thievery comes in. When Photoshop started saying, we're going to take your photos and did ads saying, oh, you don't need to go on site anymore as a photographer. You took the soul out of it.
Mhm.
And I think that's we've got to remember there's a soul of creativity. And so that's where it gets wonky. It can give you ideas. As a magazine, we get articles in, and I have to like kind of put it there, and I search them. I put the articles online and do a search to see if where are you trying to put one over on us? Because that is the truth. How many people are writing articles using Chat GPT or whatever the Chat GPT, and just tweaking it a little bit? You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And so we have to watch that a lot. And you can tell if it hasn't come from the person as this, if they haven't written like it personally. So we're very, it's, there's such great tools with it, but But when it's not a tool and it's the wrong side, it's a real pain in the butt. That's all I can say. And I want the soul in the arts. I think the art is soul. Art is energy that connects. And I feel in some weird way too, that in this whole balance, this is going to sound so weird and like up in another planet. But if you think about humanity and the collective consciousness of us all, right? We're all connected in some way. We are the blend, so I get to talk like this, but I'm not weird. I'm not going woo woo, and we're not going to L. Ron Hubbard's yacht or anything or whatever it is. But collectively, we always spar in war because that's who we are as human beings. Even the animal world does it. But it is in some weird way a form of sharing. And then in the arts, it becomes proprietary. In the tech world of it, it's proprietary. So, I mean, it's kind of like asking the world to also be socialistic in a weird way with this collectiveness. So some will say, oh, it's collective consciousness. Some will say it's socialism. So there's this whole other realm that I think we'll deal with in 20 years or so that could get kind of interesting. What do you think, Matt, on that, since we did the cult show? Do you know what I mean? That whole collective, we can share each other's art. Like, I don't know, Joey, come on, I can use one of your lyrics, right? And you can use one of mine, and we'll just let AI do it.
No.
Well, I'd have to say, Lisa, that I'm pretty opposed to that. I think that, doing research using AI, which is the collection or amassing of information, is all fine as long as you fact check it. But I'd like to think that I have a creative and unique vision of the world that can, brings out the soul in the books that I write, to use your word. And I don't think that AI will ever be able to do that until they start stealing and, using my work and passages and, figure out how to do it just subtly enough to pass the letter of the law or something like that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's just a little sterile.
Well, in the tech world, JW, doesn't that get interesting because you also don't want to steal each other's stuff, or maybe you do, but I don't know what happens on that side, because isn't this now we have to watch who's creating different tools in AI and make sure people aren't stealing that, because yet at the same time, AI is amassing this information together.
Yeah, I mean, we built my company built our own chat GPT. So basically an internal chat GPT, and we purposely removed it from, once we pulled the information from the internet to have it as a piece of data, we purposely restricted it from being able to go out and and send stuff to the internet or pull or have the internet pull from it, so that it can't be stolen, right? Because a lot of our proprietary stuff's in this. The reason we built it was so that our people can be more productive, right, with their proposals and things like that. And we don't want the internet to be able to just steal that, right? So we had to kind of lock it down. So I think you have to have those restrictions in place. Otherwise, it's just going to be, it's just going to be chaos. But, back to the art question, I was thinking about that as you guys were talking. Like, to me, art is an experience, and I don't think AI can give you an experience. So whether you're reading a book, and I might read Matthew's book and think of it a different way than Lisa will read his book and think of it a different way. Like, you may have a different experience, and that's what's important, I think, with art, is having that experience, not having some AI tell you what you should feel or think, right? So I think we're a very feely, emotional type of beings, right? And I think art plays on those feelings and emotions, and I think AI's got a long way to go before it could ever even do that.
Mm.
Yeah,
And you know what? Go ahead.
Well, this is a fascinating conversation, and I think, if I sit around too long and think about AI, that scares the dickens out of me. But when
he's going to kill someone in his book again.
And when I was listening to Joey talk about these voices and how they, captured so much emotion in the voices, what it reminded me of is what I believe is a real stumbling block right now for AI that people don't recognize. And that is AI can expertly mimic empathy, but it's not empathy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it can say, well, I understand. And there have been many examples of this, including a tragic suicide of a kid who thought that the AI was communicating, the AI bot was communicating with him. And I think, you know, that I don't know exactly how, but that links in with the arts. I mean, it's if it can't be empathetic, can it really create these creative juices that you all have been talking about?
You know, the interesting thing here is a question of, well, it comes down to 3 points. The first one is that I just want to encapsulate this with is this is not new. Worrying about AI and data crunching and how data crunching can be used. You can read Isaac Asimov's The Foundation and the idea of psychohistory and all this stuff. And then marketing, people in marketing forever have been like, okay, how do we communicate to our target audience? So there's always been this sort of data crunching that's been going on, but now it's at a whole new level. But when it comes to the arts, the thing that bothers me is that art has become a bit disposable. It's thought of as a temporary entertainment, not like it was when I was a child, when it was an experience like we're all talking about now. One of the things I love about Europe and working in Europe is that they still take time of making art an essential part of their day, whether that's music or paintings or books or whatever. And when you have the younger generation thinking of art more disposably, I think that's when AI can come in and create something that's a momentary. You're not going to have these great masterpieces, but they can come in with these momentary, sort of shallow imitations of art and shallow imitations of empathy. And so it all comes down to, I think for us artists, what lies ahead for us is the need to educate. Because if you show someone a true piece of art, and put it up against these sort of shallow imitations, I think they'll choose the real art every time. But it's a question of making sure they see it. And there was a big problem with this. It's not with AI, but this sort of happened prior to AI getting hot. And that was the fake artist scandal that happened on Spotify, where because Spotify was the largest streaming platform in the world for music, they said, hey, you know, it'd be nice if we could stop paying these pesky artists for their work. To which I say, you've built your company on the back of my work, so pay me. But they hired a bunch of session musicians and did songs in the style of Jay-Z or songs in the style of the Rolling Stones. But
that's what we get for podcast music.
Yeah, and so but they weren't real artists, but people were thinking they were actually supporting artists, and there was just the fake artist scandal. So AI can do this at an exponential rate compared to that. And it's very concerning when you think about someone like what we talked about earlier, where someone goes in and reads all the words in the dictionary, and now they'll never be heard from again because you've given them everything you have and everything you are. So your work as a voice actor is gone. So it's real concerning. I think it's the education of making sure that people understand that there's sort of this imitation of life, but there are people that I've read about in legitimate news sources that there was a French woman that petitioned her government for her to marry a robot that she had created because she couldn't find happiness. So what I'm saying is that's sort of an extreme silly point, but what I'm saying is if we as artists, if we want to see AI not take over the artistic space, there are two prongs of attack there. The first is to make sure that we don't allow AI to steal the likeness of anyone, and that we don't allow AI to use our data as its training module without being compensated. And then the other one is to educate the difference between casual, fleeting pulp fiction art, if you will, and real art, and not aggrandize these quick and dirty sort of AI empathy imitations.
Yeah, it's really the arts. Nancy is a artist, a painter, and she sold art around the world and traveled doing it and, painted in front of people. And she is, I don't know a better wildlife artist than my own mother. And I'm not saying that because she's my mother, but she is incredible. And because we travel working and doing digital art and using stylus pens and even her mouse to do art on a computer. And I'm going, oh my gosh, are people going to think this is AI art when it's not? You're actually doing the art instead of doing the paintbrushes, So we're having this discussion almost on a nightly basis with wine because we're like having this, does she do it? Do we get it? Do we, just, because I think in a way the arts are going to benefit later and it's going to take a fight. And I think the arts will become very important and it's going to be important, just like, honestly, I love a book in my hands. Thank you, Matt. I will steal it back from Nancy. There's something about tangibility at times. And I think, what you've done, Michael, is like, you've got someone like they want to get in their zone. They're going to go down rabbit holes. Now that appeals to my brain as I go down every rabbit hole I can. So there's all these balances that come in. But if we do not protect the arts, all I can say is we're going to end up with therapy bills that you won't believe. I think mental health is going to be in the humanity's mental health. Without nature and the arts, there's going to be an issue. I really do believe that. There's a line of needing to relax. There's great apps. There's great things that AI does to help. But Marshall, would you say that we are going to need some sanity somewhere as humans at the end of the day?
Absolutely. And, I may be, this may be naive to say, but I think there's lots of potential for AI as a way to assist us to accomplish tasks that are difficult. I just don't see it right now as a replacement for healthcare providers. I mean, since I'm talking about healthcare. And I think it's, but there are certainly people in my world who say, oh, wouldn't that be great? We can replace all the ex-healthcare providers with AI and think of all the money we'll save. Well, that's possible. But is that really what people want for their healthcare? And I don't think people are ready for that.
We want the bedside manner. So what you were talking about, JW, with, in Thailand where they're able to see more patients, I think that's a good thing. So it's about looking at where can we take jobs. It's kind of like going from coal to solar. Like people get mad about, my family's worked in the coal fields for years and this is the way of life. But it also was not a very clean way of life and it's a hard thing. And at the same time, okay, here we have solar that's clean and in some instances not good to put in certain areas, whatever. That's a whole other conversation, but it's a change and people get scared about change. And so that's what is so interesting about this too, is because it's a lot of changes in a lot of ways and the arts are implicated. But, you guys are all talking about people's voices. That's why we get to be stupid on our podcasts at times and be silly and say things because I want people to know that we're human. We're not some voiceover that's perfect. And, everybody wants everything so squeaky clean, edited down to the, perfection. Well, I don't know. Joey, you're going to back me up. I know, right? The live album is always better unless it was really a bad recording.
I agree with you on that. Yeah. And I'm not a Luddite by any stretch of the imagination. I think evolution is natural and good and all that kind of stuff. But there is a certain transmission of feeling that artists give us, whether it's visual. I can't really appreciate the visual, obviously, but I mean, it really is a communication thing. There's information that passes between the artist and the person that is enjoying the art. That's hard to replicate. There's something spiritual that happens there.
And it's an imperfection is also an art.
Absolutely.
And it's also the beauty of it all, man. Imperfection is underrated, man.
We talk about it. We talk about it in all my technical classes. So if you have a bunch of musicians in one room and you have a bunch of microphones in one room, what's going to happen? The drums bleed onto the vocal mic, and the vocal mic picks up the guitar mic picks up the bass mic picks up the drums, and there's, we call it the art of bleed. And if you do it right, it can be really powerful and amazing. And so it's you know, the sometimes the limitation is absolutely what makes the perfection. And it seems sort of cognitive dissonance, but it's really true. It reminds me of the Hammond B3 organ, which was this famous rock organ that you could always hear the organ grinding and all this grit. And back in I think it was the mid to late 90s, Hammond came out with the digital B3, and they're like, oh, we've got rid of all the grit and grind and gunk, and hearing the gears clank and clash, and we've perfected it. And you know, nobody bought one. I mean, no, you know, everybody hated it.
Yeah, it's like the banjo being replicated on a keyboard. Stop it. You just can't do it. Just stop it already. Well, you know, but that's the balance, is finding the balance. And I think it's an interesting time to be part of this. I mean, holy cow. I mean, people went to the moon, believe it or not, right? So, you know, things are always escalating. So in closing, I want to go around to each of you and thank you for being here on this conversation. I think this is kind of crazy. I'm going to have very weird dreams tonight now. So I want to go to Marshall first, you know, because we've been planning this show with you for a while now. Anything you want to close off with? Are you working on anything new you want people to know about? Or do you want to give any, like, hey, watch for this in AI?
Well, first of all, thank you. It's been a fascinating hour. Second of all, I'm very early in gestation. I'm not using AI on a second novel that has to do with immortality and this quest that so many very wealthy people have to reverse aging. And of course, in the world I look at from a fiction standpoint, that's fraught with all kinds of problems. So the last thing I'll say is I love writing fiction because in my real life, I have to be precise and I have to be correct. And in fiction, you can make up whatever you want. So
you are allowed to have the imperfection, but as a doctor, yeah, you gotta cut it right. You know what I mean? So wait, I want to go back because the last time I talked to you, Marshall, you talked about people being frozen on the farms in Phoenix. Why are they in the desert freezing themselves for the next like this immortality thing? You know, we're in Tucson right now and I'm like, it's been like 80 degrees the other day and I'm going, they're freezing people to see if they'll come alive. Like, you know, how many years from now in the desert?
Who knows? 20, 50. The idea is, you know, Ted Williams of all people, I think is in that freezer farm.
No.
And, you know, the idea is when the technology's there, they'll thaw him. And I'm fairly certain I won't be alive when that technology comes.
But they cut their heads off, right? They cut their heads off.
They store their heads in one place and their body in another place.
I just had to go there. I just had to because, like, I'm sorry, on the marketing side, I'm like that. That's brilliant stuff, but it's crazy. I mean, because now how do you put your head? How do you put it back? I mean, that's insane.
Glue.
I know super glue has a whole new thing. I mean, that's just no. Wow. All right. So JW, I'm going to you. Everyone again, let me just give everyone's website for Marshall is codedtokill.com. It's a great stocking stuffer. I'm just saying.
Tell all your friends.
Yeah, but you know, it could be a nice warning. But listen, it will tell you about the medical system and your records and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, you've got to get it. It's a good book. Let's go over to you. JW's book is everyone, JW Jarvis. You can go to author jwjarvis.com. It is Artificial Agent that comes out January 21st. So you can pre-order it now. And by the way, everyone, if you pre-order books from authors, it really helps them. So please do it. Help Rufus on Amazon. Wow.
Yeah.
But
and thanks for having me. And I just want to, close and say that I think art will keep our humanity. So I think, and we want to teach our children and youngsters to keep being creative. So creative is not going through social media posts and getting those short dopamine bursts. Creative is actually doing something on your own and creating something that you can be proud of. And that's like long-term dopamine that you just cannot replace. So, keep doing it, keep reading. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, JW, thank you so much. And I want to also give you a shout out being in the tech world, because I keep always saying, like, that was a bad sentence. I keep always saying, quick, call AI, chat GPT help. Being in the tech world, and everything that we're going through in climate change and everything, this is creative stuff. People need to understand that tech is not boring. It's exciting. It's about the balance that we've talked about on the show. But if you don't think tech is not creative, like, come on, it is. I think it's super creative, right? And AI, even coming up with all the tools that come from that, is part of creativity, wouldn't you think? Because I think sometimes science and tech gets split away from the arts, and it's not really. See, I'm the blend again. So, it's creative and it's good. Matt, going over to you, everyone. Matt Cost.net. He's got a lot of books for Christmas. You're going to need like the whole chimney, but don't set the fire yet. Like how many stockings do you need for how many books now? Like seriously.
The one I recently sent you that you're going to be reading soon would be number 16, mainly mayhem. Wow. So I've got 17 coming out in April, which is the first in a new series of the one that I was talking about today.
Can you give us a name, or are we not allowed to know yet?
The one coming out in April is The Not So Merry Adventures of Max Creed, and it's a modern day Robin Hood story where a group of people band together to bring justice for those wronged by the ultra wealthy.
Ooh.
And that's going to evolve into the other book I was talking about, Everything versus Max Creed, which is coming out in 2026.
Wow. Man, I've got a lot of, can I send you stuff? I want to send you stories about that. All right, everyone, mattcost.net. And he doesn't write using ChatGPT, right? It's all straight from Matt.
Absolutely. The imperfections is the good stuff, right?
It is. That is. That's why we have happy hours. Going over to Joey Stuckey. We love Joey, and Nancy and I finally got to meet him right before a hurricane. That's it. We just
because that's
right
the kind
through.
of man I am. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, Joey, we love our times on our fourth Sundays with you, and it's exciting, always talking music, and it gets into the nitty gritty of every note and bend and turn. But Joey, anything coming up for you on the horizon? I think you've got holiday music to let everybody know about, right? And I don't think AI had anything to do with Jingle Bells.
Absolutely not. Yeah. So it's, I have an album that's all Christmas tunes, and it's called A Santa That Plays Guitar, which is the original track that I wrote about my Christmas wish of Santa coming to jam with me. And so that's my original tune. And then I have some unique versions of other holiday classics like Oh Holy Night, Let It Snow, Jingle Bells. I actually incorporated a verse from Jingle Bells that's rarely heard, originally broadcast in the, I think, 1944, 1943. And it was a live Christmas broadcast for the troops in World War II. And they had a really interesting second verse of Jingle Bells that I've never heard again except for that one. It was with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. And so I brought that back.
Oh, wow.
So that's on the Christmas record. And of course, we're still doing the little EP I released in June of this year, which is called Live from Macon. It's just me singing with my acoustic guitar, one take live in studio. It is what it is, and it just recorded me performing with a couple mics, no studio trickery at all of any kind. I'm
no
generally,
AI?
No AI, no. I mean, I'm generally opposed to anything that makes something sound other than what it is. On occasion, if there's one note wrong because it was 3 a.m. and we were all tired and we missed it, and rather than bringing the artist back for an astronomical fee to fix one note, then yes, I might do some digital hokey pokey with it. But generally speaking, I'm opposed to anything like that. So all my stuff is pretty pretty uninhibited and
Well,
pretty
you are
unaltered.
the music ambassador of Macon, Georgia, which is the capital of Southern rock.
True.
And Whipping Post, one of my favorite songs, is on that EP. And
yeah.
I love your version of it. It is fantastic. So everyone, joeystuckey.com, go there. And I want to close off with some devil games with Michael Wolk here. Michael, thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit more what's coming up for you. Do you have another play coming out? What's happening for you?
Well, I've been producing, and I'm very excited by a solo piece that I'm producing that's in the UK right now and bound for London, called Kenrex. And it's based on a real story in America where it starts with a 9/11 call where the caller says, 9/11, my husband's been shot. My husband's been shot. And then 9/11 says, ma'am, who shot your husband? And she says, the whole town. And that's the story.
Wow.
It's a story of a town that murders a town bully. And it's a true story told by one person as 37 different people.
Wow.
And, yeah, it's pretty rousing. So
that sounds cool.
You'll come see it when it gets to town.
Oh, wow. So you're starting it in London, right? So that's amazing. Joey's happy. Joey loves England. So he'll go just for mince pies, and to hang out with you there.
That is very
so
true.
Everyone go to wolktransfer.com. It's WOLK, wolktransfer.com, and also go to devilsgame.com. Thank you all so much for joining us. I know we went over a few minutes.
Thank you, Lisa.
But that's because we're human and not AI-ified. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank
everybody.
you. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.